Hey now, it is Mexican lager time. Really excited about this. The weather's perfect for fermenting in the garage with my heat wraps, and this is going to be ready well in time for Cinco de Mayo, so we'll be able to have some good old Mexican lagers just as the weather's really warming up, which is awesome. So essentially what I'm looking for here is a beer that's nice, light-bodied, grainy, a little bit of noble hopping going on, and super clean. So let's see if we can pull that off. So starting off here, I've got the grain that's going into this beer. I've got 46.6% Weyermann Pilsner. That's going to give me just a little bit of nice graininess. And then I've got 30%. This is North American 6-row. And if you want to compare this to some North American 2-row, you can see that the 2-row is definitely plumper and whatnot. Now the 6-row is going to have extra enzymes and whatnot that'll help that rice that's going in here convert, and it'll just help result in that really nice light-bodied beer. Now, speaking of the rice, I've got 18.6% flaked rice. I don't need to mill, it's just going to go into the mash tun. And then I've got some rice syrup solids here, and that makes up the remainder. I've just got this full pound is going to go into that. So that's going to go into the boil. So we'll see that in a little bit here. So let's get this malt milled up. All right, I've got my super attractive dust mask on here, just because the grain dust really bothers me. But anyway, let's fire up the mill. So using my Monster Mill 3mm Pro, this is not going to take too terribly long to crush through this. And once we've got this, we're ready to mash in. All right, so I'm ready to mash in. I'm going to pour in the malt, and I'm going to pour in flaked rice. I threw in a little bit of mash pH stabilizer here, also just because this is going to be such a light beer with the water chemistry that we have here. It's really helpful to do that. The other thing that I'm doing here as well, just because I've got all this rice in here, is I'm running a thinner mash, so I'm going 4 liters per kilo instead of 3 like I normally do. So also for that, then I lowered my strike water temperature by a couple degrees Celsius, just so that I would be less likely to accidentally overshoot. And I'm going for a protein rest here right off the bat, just because I have that Weyermann malt in here, and I find that that kind of helps with that malt to help result in a bit of a clearer beer. So I'm just going to get this all nicely stirred up, and then we can start to recirculate this mash. Woo! She is hazy right off the bat here. Wow, look at that in the sight glass. But nice little recirculation starting here, and I'm going to give this around half an hour at 50 Celsius, or in that 125 Fahrenheit range, and that'll just be a nice little protein rest. So after that half-hour protein rest, I'm going to be stepping up to 64.4 Celsius or 148 Fahrenheit and do my saccharification rest there. That'll be an hour mash. So after that hour at 64.4 or 149, I'm going to take it up to 67.7 or 154. Probably let it sit there for about 10 minutes just to kind of chop up some of those larger chain sugars for a few minutes before carrying on to my mash out temp. Okay, so after that 10 minutes, I'm going to take it up to 75 Celsius or around that 168 Fahrenheit range for the mash out, and once it's sitting up there, I'm going to give it probably at least 15 minutes of recirc time just to make sure that it is nice and warm for the sparge. Alright, so after a decent little mash out phase there, it's time just to get everything swapped over here. So I'm first just going to get rid of this lid, and we will get this thing ready. So I'm going to just turn off the gas and the recirc on my HLT, pop the probe, get our thermal well out of here. Throw my cap on. And likewise, switch off the mash tun. And now the lid's just whoop, swap over. I'll put the HLT lid on here just to help retain some heat. I'm going to need my little sparge water deflector there, and just get that lock going down right at the bottom of the boil kettle there. Perfect. So I can go ahead and start to transfer sparge water from the HLT into the mash tun. I'm going to let it rise up a little bit here before I then start to run off into the boil kettle. So I've just started to run off. You can see that this wort really got, fairly nicely clear, showing nice conversion, which is good. And I'm just running off into the boil kettle here. Once I get up a decent ways and have a few gallons in here, I will flame on, get it heating up for a boil. And moment of truth. Woo! Flame on! So I've got around 55 liters in here, and now I'm going to add the rice syrup solid. So this is actually 4.7% of the, I guess, grain bill, if we're going to call it that. However, this actually gets added directly to the wort here. So I'm just going to sprinkle it in, and then I'm going to stir it up. I'm doing this before I've got all the wort in here because I'm collecting 73 liters. So it's going to be right up near the top here, and I don't want to run into issues when I go to stir it, because I want to stir it really well to help ensure that we don't have any kind of sticking to the bottom and scorching of those sugars. So stir it up here for a minute. I'm still running off and I'm still heating, but I'm just going to. Oh, my daughter found a large stick outside. That's awesome. Okay, I'm gonna stir. We'll come back in a sec. So I've got those solids all mixed in here. Now the reason I'm using the flaked rice and the rice syrup solids is the last time we went to make a Mexican lager, my buddy and I actually wound up using some, we tried minute rice as a way just to get the rice contribution in there, and it absolutely gummed up just the heck out of his pumps, and it was a huge problem. We managed to pull off the beer, and it was absolutely freaking delicious. However, the hassle just wasn't worth it. So we're playing around with this option here, and it's obviously working quite a bit better. We had no problems here with the mash whatsoever. So I guess it's just going to be seeing how everything attenuates and what the finished beer tastes like. All right, I've collected my 73 liters that I need. Now I'm just going to go ahead and collect 12 ounces of wort here for my super moss edition that's going to happen later on in the boil. Whoa, and we have hit a boil. So this will be a 90-minute because of that Pilsner malt, and at 60 minutes we're going to add our first hops. Oh, we have some beautiful Saaz hops here, so 60 minutes left in the boil. We're going to add these, and this is going to get us up to our 14 IBUs, and we'll try not to boil over. More! I guess that's it. Excitement's over. We are now attempting to find... Hey, there we go. We found the spoon. And we lost it. Oh. There is no spoon. So with 10 minutes left, I'm just going to add the super moss and that wort that I collected initially. Alright, so it's time to flame out. We'll just do that, and we shall whirlpool. Just to make transferring off of this quite a bit easier. Picking up less of the trub and the hot matter. Then I'm going to lid it and give it at least 15 minutes just to settle out. So now that I'm running off here, I should take the time to mention that I also had some Whirlpool hops. I had 30 grams of that Saaz that I added right after I turned off the camera after that last shot, and I didn't have a chance to film it. So there were some flameout hops there right right at the end, and we are now running off into these 3 carboys. All right, so this current tangled mess, I've just got the heat wraps and the temperature probe set up, and I am heating up so that I can get ready to pitch yeast. And our gravity comes in at 1047, which is perfect. Okay, so now I'm just going to go ahead and oxygenate the wort here. Just going to get that oxygenation stone in there, or diffusion stone, and fire up this gas. And let her rock for close to a minute. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and repeat this with the other ones here too. So I'm going to be fermenting with 2 different yeasts here. So 2 of the carboys, I've got some escarpment Mexican lager yeast. I took 1 pack and pitched it into this starter here, which was at about 1043 original gravity, and there's 3.8 liters of it in there. And then I've got this, and this I let grow up for well over 24 hours. It's definitely as many cells as we can possibly get out of that. And then the second one here, which I'm going to throw onto the stir plate here in just a second, is 2 dry packs of Fermentus W3470 lager yeast. So I'm going to pull this one off here and then get this other one kind of mixing up. It's fairly ready to go. I just want to get it nice and creamy here, and then we can pitch. Okay, so since this flask here is basically reading at 3.8 liters, I'm going to shoot for 1900 mils into here. Let's see how good I am. All right, just going to top up this other one here, the last little bit of it, and that is quite even. And lastly, just have to grab my little magnet for my stir bar. Lastly, I've got this formerly dry yeast that has been nicely rehydrated. And I'm not bothering to rinse this out in between. If a little bit of that escarpment Mexican lager yeast gets in there, I'm certainly not worried about that. I'm actually much more excited about that yeast than I am this one. So there we are. And all 3 of these 2 carboys are at 53, which is where I want to start. And the other carboys at 54. And I guess we'll see what happens. So just over 24 hours, this one here with the W3470 is definitely showing signs of life. These other ones here are lagging a little bit behind. There is signs of life, but not quite as quick. I'm going to increase the temperature just a little bit, another degree or so. Well, about 7 hours later, I came home and found this awesomeness going on here in these carboys. Lots of super healthy looking fermentation occurring. So really excited to see how this goes. So after about a week of fermenting, I slowly began to ramp up the temperature of those beers, and we went up right into the mid-60s, held it there for a week, managed to hit our terminal gravity matching 1010, so really nice light-bodied finish on that, and then started to crash cool. So after crash cooling, these are ready for transfer. All of them wound up hitting 1010 as a finishing gravity, so going to get these off into kegs, and then from there I can chill down, gelatin fine, carbonate, and we'll be good to test. So after transferring the beer into the kegs, I sort of did the usual with them. I chilled them down, gelatin fined. These ones actually let sit a few weeks, then transferred into carbonation kegs, carbonated up, and we are ready to drink. Now, the only thing I need is a nice hot beach, but guess what the weather decided to do? Look at this. Look at this. It is mid-April. And it's minus 12 outside, Celsius, and snowing. Absolutely ridiculous. So, yeah, I'm incredibly unimpressed. I now have decided it's not even going on tap here right now, meaning it is in my keezer, and I'm going to serve it with the picnic tap. Furthermore, I'm going to serve it into a Pilsner or a kettle glass. Why? Because I'm upset, and I'm just going to break all the rules right now. So, if this is pissing anybody off, well, you're on the other side of the screen, and I'm just as angry as you are. So, I'm going to go ahead and pour this, and we'll be back. So, we've established that I'm annoyed. However, this is an absolutely beautiful beer. Crystal clear. Oh, just fantastic. The head died down a little bit because I've been mucking around with this glass for a minute or so since pouring. However, let's give it a taste. That almost went down the wrong tube. See, everything's just a disaster today. Except for the beer itself. This is amazing. Super light bodied with that, 25% rice that's in there. Really lightened it up. Then with that 6-row and then that 40-ish% Pilsner malt, you get some nice graininess out of it. The Saaz really not contributing much by way of flavor because we only did a bittering and then a flameout addition. Just the barest hint of those Saaz hops in the aroma. But really, this is what we're after. We're after a really easy, light drinking beer, something super crushable, nicely carbonated, perfect for a hot day. This isn't going on tap for a while. I'm going to leave it in the keezer. Keep it super cold. Sit it at 1 Celsius, or it's 30, 33, 34 Fahrenheit. And I'm going to wait a couple weeks for the weather to significantly improve. So, yeah, anyway, give it a whirl. Really nice lager, easy to brew, and even easier to drink. So, till next time, keep it at 11.